It's more than just your output, more than a bike. When you hear your shout out, you know it's all right. Put on your magic pants and let's go. We're cruising into the power zone. Clip in, set yourself free. Come on and take a ride with me. Know what you need to know and what's it all about. Everything you need, it's on the Clip Out.
Welcome to the Clip Out, episode 329. This is Crystal O'Keefe.
And this is Tom O'Keefe. If we sound a little different, it's because we are coming to you from a cruise ship.
We are currently docked outside St. Philipsburg in St. Martin.
This is our second St. Martin episode of the year.
Yeah, by accident.
Yeah.
We had no idea when we booked this cruise for the two of us. So much has changed because it was 18 months ago that we booked this trip. And one, we thought that my daughter would be staying with her dad. That changed. Two, we had no idea we would be doing that this trip would be stopping in St. Martin.
Right.
And then we went to St. Martin, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then...
Because we didn't even check the locations on where this cruise was going. We were like, oh, we're just going to do a Disney cruise. Who cares?
Yeah, and we're the type that when we get here and everybody else gets off the boat, we go to the pool.
Yeah, because we're like, now nobody's at the pool, and we get it all to ourselves.
And that's exactly what happened today.
Yeah, it was nice.
It was.
So anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, our apologies. You have no video.
Sorry.
Because we can't, or the Wi-Fi, we capture the video through Zoom, and the Wi-Fi here is dog shit.
Not great.
So there's no way to run Zoom here.
Yeah.
So no video this week.
Yeah.
And no bonus for Patreon people this week, but that'll all be back next week like normal. We appreciate your patience. So
speaking of things we are not including, no Angelo this week.
Yes.
And that's just because I kind of forgot. Consider it a drunken haze. No, I'm just kidding. But I have been kind of just out of it, just trying to relax, and I totally forgot. I relaxed a little too well.
That's okay. So you got a nice thing in the mail this week.
I did. Yeah, it was from Robin Arzon's publishing company, and it was a box set of her new journal called Welcome Hustler.
Well, hang on. This is unfair. I mean, when I get hustlers in the mail, you get very upset.
That is a very different kind of hustler.
I don't complain about your hustlers at all.
Well, I actually technically didn't get a hustler in the mail. I got a welcome kit for being a hustler. So do the math on that one.
Well, now, there's something I need to know. Do you have an OnlyFans now? Is that what's going on?
No comment.
So, but it was a whole thing that you got.
It was, yeah. It was really neat. So it was the journal itself, and then there was a really nice like magnet, and then there was a pen to write in, and it had like a highlighter on one end, pen on the other. There was a $100 gift certificate toward the clothing brand that she represents. I believe it's called GTSQ. And then there was also a free year of masterclass. And then there was a bag for...
And that's not because that would get you access to everything, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Because there's all sorts of... Steve Martin's got a thing on there.
I know. And then there was also a Swagger Society like tote bag.
Right.
And I believe that was the full extent of everything. The journal itself, I was really surprised at. It had not, I really expected that it was going to be like things to kind of like get you thinking about your workouts and motivation and things like that.
Right.
But it actually was a complete life journal. So there was things about financials. There were things about like, what do you want to do for a living? Like there was
more like just a little bit. I looked at it more like life coach stuff.
That's what I said.
Yeah, than work. Well, you said life stuff. Like you said,
okay. Yes, that's what I meant. Like your whole life all over.
Right.
As a overview.
Right.
But we are both on the same page about that for sure. Yeah. And so I was really surprised at the depth of topics that it covered.
Yeah.
And went into. So I know a lot of people are like really frustrated at Robin these days. I don't know. I feel kind of mixed about it. Like on the one hand, I feel like people are really targeting her specifically, but she's kind of had this like, I don't know how else to label it, an empire the longest.
Right.
She's had a brand the longest out of all the instructors.
For sure.
And I feel like she knows how to monetize it in a way that some of the other instructors have been slower to embrace.
Right.
Whether they're just not comfortable with it, they don't like it. There could be a million reasons why.
And she also seems to embrace new technology with her love of Web3 and all that stuff. And like, the jury's still out on if that's a real thing. A lot of people are skeptical, and I think that skepticism a lot of times is justified. But it also, there's been a lot of things technology-wise that people were skeptical about. Watched clips of the Today Show talking about the World Wide Webs and from like 1996.
That's fair.
And trying to explain what email is.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never watched that, but that's hilarious.
It's brutal. Like it's so silly by today's standards.
I'm sure.
So and I'm not saying that therefore the same is true of Web3, but I'm also saying that I don't know enough to know that it's not. Like it's
I would have to agree. I'm not really comfortable with it, especially the NFT side of things. But at the same time, like I kind of feel like she gets kind of a bad rap that I don't really understand why the other instructors get a pass on. Yeah. Like, I mean, Kendall's out there literally everywhere, like literally everywhere. No one says a word.
Yeah.
You know, Alex is out there selling tickets that are a lot more expensive to take pictures with. Nobody says a word. And I feel like it just seems to me that people have their favorites and they get a pass in a way that other people who aren't their favorites don't get a pass.
Yeah.
And I don't really care who does or doesn't. I just wish that people would be fair about it.
Yeah.
Like equitable.
For sure.
But either way, I really enjoyed the box. It was really neat. And I never would have probably tried out that GTSQ brand.
Right.
Or GSTQ, whichever it is. And I definitely will be trying it out now. And I will definitely use the masterclass. We probably both will, knowing us. So
for sure. Absolutely.
Those are things we're gonna get use out of. And I really appreciate the thoughtfulness behind that. And
absolutely.
And sending it.
So we should also say, just a reminder that we have the book club getting ready to start up if people want to take part.
Absolutely. And I believe that is the second Tuesday of October that we are going to have our first meeting. And I think it's 10/10 that it falls on, but I don't have a calendar in front of me, so forgive me. It will be 7 p.m. Central. And David Miller is going to be joining us. So if you are wanting to tag along, read the next 3 chapters, and join us on the 10th. And even if you don't read the 3 chapters, join us.
Yeah, it's not like you'll get grounded or detention or something.
No, it's no grade. There's no grade and there's no test either. It's all for fun. But if you would like to sign up for that, you go to patreon.com/theclipout and then you just click join the community. It is part of the free benefit you get for being part of the Patreon.
Right. It does not cost to take part in the book club.
No, but everybody keeps saying like, so what do I do when I go to patreon.com/theclipout? So I'm just trying to explain.
Right.
All you have to do is click join the community. If you would like to have access to our bonus episodes or get content that comes out a little bit earlier than the regular content, that is where you want to click one of the tiers to join that costs money. And you can also get your ad-free episodes by joining one of those tiers. But the free tier, you have access to everything within the book club that we are doing.
Absolutely. So what, pray tell, do you have in store for people this week?
We are going to talk about so much Peloton news. The this became an issue for us this week, the preloading of classes. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the new Michigan bikes, the new patent lawsuit that just hit, the new SVP of Apparel. We have tons of news about the instructors, little celebrity hit, no, we do not have a past guest update. And of course, we're going to have our TCO top 5 and birthdays.
Awesome. Well, before we get to all that shameless plugs, don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeart, TuneIn, wherever you find a podcast, you can find us while you're there. Be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. Always super helpful and greatly appreciated. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/theclipout. While you're there, like the page, join the group. I won't go through Patreon again because we just talked about it during the book club, but it's out there, patreon.com/theclipout. And you can watch 99.9% of these on YouTube. Not this one, but the ones.
Picture me waving at you.
But the ones before and after. You can watch those at youtube.com/theclipout. And of course, you can sign up for our newsletter over at our recently redesigned theclipout.com. So there's all that. Let's dig in.
Breaking news.
Holy cannoli.
So this is big stuff.
This is real big stuff.
Yeah.
So Lululemon and Peloton just announced that it was the beginning of a movement. Now, it immediately struck my attention. It was not on the Apparel channel. And I said to you, I don't understand.
Yeah, because people were like, oh, there must be an apparel thing. And you're like, but this is on one Peloton, not on Peloton Apparel.
Yeah.
On the gram.
But then when I went to go read it, it said, okay, the first drop is happening October 11th. Okay, I must have been wrong. Then I saw this on businesswire.com. It says Lululemon and Peloton announce a 5-year strategic global partnership. Multi-dimensional agreement brings together the best in fitness content and athletic apparel to inspire a combined community of more than 20 million members and guests. How, you ask? Well, let me tell you. Lululemon becomes Peloton's primary apparel partner. What?
So do you think primary means that they can still do things with other brands?
I do.
You'll still see the occasional.
Because it doesn't say exclusive.
Right.
And we know they're about to drop the thing with Brittany Allen.
Right.
Like it's happening. It's going to happen before people even hear this, probably.
So it makes me think, though, that most of the rank and file stuff that you go in, the stuff that's always in stock, will be Lululemon stuff moving forward. It's kind of how I hear that.
I think so, too. But I also think it's possible that Peloton is still going to be making their own.
Right.
Maybe.
Sure.
I don't know. Just a little reminder. It was not that long ago that these two were
suing the living shit out of each other.
Yeah, now they both settled.
Right.
So who knows how long this has been in the works.
Right.
But go ahead.
I want to know.
Okay.
I would love to know.
Yeah.
Who makes that phone call? Who makes the first phone call after they've been suing and Lululemon's like, you're stealing our stuff, and they're suing each other, and you're a dirty piece
I'll tell
of
you who makes that phone call, the smart one.
Yeah, but I'm just like, who's the one that says...
Can you imagine being that ballsy of a business partner where you're just like, I know that we've sued each other. I know it didn't go well, but how about we just go ahead and work together?
Yeah.
How about we buck the system?
So now that we're done suing each other, what do you think about...
should we just work together?
Yeah.
Well, let's do that. Well, I mean, what a thing to announce the day after a new senior VP of Apparel hits.
Yeah.
Literally the next day.
Yeah.
And then there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Peloton becomes exclusive digital fitness content provider for Lululemon, and will develop all content for Lululemon Studio beginning early 2024. What?
Does this mean we have to stop making fun of the mirror?
I think so.
Oh, man. But I like making fun of it. I guess we'll just have to go back to making fun of Echelon exclusively.
Yeah.
Echelon
will be our primary.
Will be our primary mocking partner.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
We'll still occasionally make fun of the mirror. I wonder if because it sounds like the mirror is basically becoming a guide. I wonder if they'll call it the Guide Plus.
Well, that's interesting because there wouldn't be you couldn't do things with weights and stuff like you can with the guide, or can you plug it in? I mean, I've got questions.
Right.
So one of the things that this says here is that they're going to give communities one-of-a-kind experiences and special content that will help them achieve their goals. Beginning October 11th, co-branded apparel across Lululemon's product lines will be available for purchase at Peloton retail stores and at the boutique online. That's going to be in the US, the UK, and Canada. Oh, thank God. And then it'll be in all 5 global markets by March of 2024. So that'll hit Australia and Germany by 2024. The co-branded apparel will be launched over the course of 3 new events that will be added to Peloton's Peloton on Tour, starting with an activation in Chicago.
You think that'll be part of On Tour, or you think it'll be something totally different?
It says it will be added to the already scheduled Peloton on Tour. So if you were listening.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm just talking to myself here. Don't worry.
Sometimes.
I know. Now, on November 1st, 2023, Lululemon Studio All Access members will have access to thousands of Peloton classes for the same price they pay today. What?
So, like I said, the mirror is basically a big giant guide.
It says that Peloton content will be updated on a weekly basis on the Studio device and the companion app, with the new Studio content produced by Lululemon through spring of next year. In addition, Peloton content will be available to people who sign up for the free Essential membership program, which currently has more than 13 million members. Lululemon intends to discontinue selling the Studio mirror, but will continue to provide ongoing service and support. Lululemon will also discontinue its digital app-only membership on November 1st, and current Lululemon Studio app-only members will be offered an opportunity to become a Peloton App One. Wow.
So if Peloton is creating exclusive digital content for Lululemon, but they're going to cease making the mirror, then what long term are they making for them?
They're giving new content for the Studio.
For existing mirror.
Right.
Oh, okay, but those will obviously
all it does
dissipate over time.
It gives Peloton 13 million more members,
right,
when their goal is to get to 100 million members.
Yeah.
They just
scooped up.
Boom, 13 million.
Because if you already had Lululemon, you're like, well, my mirror still works, but now I got Peloton people, and I'm baked into the Peloton world.
There you go.
And all of a sudden, it's like, well, maybe I do want a bike, and yeah.
Yep.
Oh, this is pretty good move.
It is. It's huge.
Especially as much as Lululemon's been wanting to ditch the mirror for so long.
Can I just say though, I'm just a little sad it wasn't tonal.
Yeah.
Although as badly as things have been going for Studio, maybe it's for the best, because that would mean that tonal would have to be in a really, 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 really bad place for this to be happening.
Yeah, because it sounds like they're just like they couldn't sell it, so they're just like screw it, and they're just they're just writing it off.
Yeah,
and this is their way of still like not just leaving. So here's the really good thing from a Lululemon standpoint in terms of like respectability for Lululemon. They didn't just shut down Mirror and leave all those people in the lurch. Right.
Yeah, right.
Like it's like, oh, you still have a thing. Your thing is still going to work. Right. Only now it'll have Peloton content. Your membership still exists, but it'll be a Peloton membership.
Okay. Remind me, maybe I'm crazy, but didn't the same thing happen when one of the like flywheel went under? Didn't Peloton step in then too? Didn't you?
There was something like that where like they ended up like in the lawsuit. They ended up with was it the flywheel at home or whatever?
Yeah, I think so.
There was something like that.
And then you still could become a Peloton member. I mean, it wasn't just an automatic transfer, but you had the option. Yeah. But these people will have more options because they can become a different tier. They don't have to take on the full thing if they don't want to. So, and it's nice that Peloton will continue to make new content, and it's very smart because then the people who already have a Studio membership, like you said, they're going to be like, oh, this is really good content. Right. What am I missing over here?
Probably better than what they'd been getting.
I was trying to be nice, but yeah.
I was trying to be nice by saying probably.
Oh, okay.
That was me being nice.
Oh.
Well, we've just confirmed what everyone already knows, which is you're nicer than I am. But this is a really good move for Peloton. I think it's it's a little bit of a shit burger for Lululemon, but I think they did the best they could, given that the mirror was kind of a whole lot of nothing.
It was.
I mean, it was always a TV hung sideways that you did aerobics with.
You said it since day one,
and it never made any sense to me. And so now at least it's got Peloton content on it, and you pull those members in, and maybe you upsell them on another piece of equipment, or you pull them into your ecosystem, and that's for the best. So I think this is smart and
they just scooped up all those new members
for sure.
Yeah.
So
well, we need to hear from people who have a studio. That's what we need to. So if anybody out there is listening and you have Lululemon Studio, how's it look over there?
Yeah.
What's happening? Obviously, you don't know yet, but when it happens, we want to hear all the details. So reach out.
Absolutely. So anyway, there's your breaking news. We will now return you to your regularly scheduled Clip Out program.
And we will resume drinking.
Already in progress. Well, we sussed out this week that preloading classes comes with data storage limits.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
There is nothing that you can download or use data for that does not have a limit.
Sure.
Makes sense. But somebody posted over in the Clip Out group that they were unable to get to their classes because they had so many of them, which got me to thinking, how much am I actually using?
Right.
Because we're getting ready to go on this cruise. I had pre-downloaded some classes that I wanted to be able to take. Now, I will tell you that they don't appear to take up a tremendous amount of room. To give people perspective, I hadn't even used a gig, and I had downloaded Susie Chan's new 90-minute class that was outdoors, and I had downloaded several other runs. I think it was a total of 7, and then I also had like a pre-run stretch and a after run stretch, and I hadn't even used a gig. Now, the woman who posted this, she was using 50 gigs. So my greater point to that is you want to make sure that if you are preloading classes that you go in and delete them. There's no, like, after you take a class, it doesn't just disappear. And I think some people think it does.
Yeah, I get why someone would think that. I mean, I also get that there are probably people that want to retake things, that it would drive them crazy if it got deleted every time they used it.
Well, that's a very fair point. Now, people also might be asking, what the heck is a preloading of class? So Peloton a few years ago came out with this really nice feature. It used to be exclusively on Apple. Not that I was an Android user and had great upsetness over this.
But you have since turned.
I have. The worm has turned in the apple. So I don't know. I figured there was some kind of joke there. I tried. It didn't work. So what you do is you're able to click the download on any class and it loads it to the device you're using. And then when you want to play it, if you're in a spot that doesn't have great service, you're still able to play the class, with the only exception being you need enough Wi-Fi to start the class.
So it knows you actually you can't download a bunch of stuff and cancel your membership.
Correct. That is exactly what they're trying to avoid. It's super nice if you're in an area, like let's say you're doing an outdoor class and there's no signal. I don't know, like if you're in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
Then you want to be able to take that class. But if you have enough Wi-Fi to just connect.
Just so they know you're legit.
Now the rest of it you can play and you don't have to worry about skips and stops and slowdowns. It's just all there.
So once they know you're legit, you will be too legit to quit.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So we talked a while back about Peloton's University of Michigan bikes.
We did.
And originally they were kind of a branded thing that was going to be available on campus, but not a thing that you could actually get. Well, that is no longer the case.
That is no longer the case indeed. So Peloton did post this week that you are going to be able to buy your very own University of Michigan branded Bike Plus, and you will be able to do it by the end of September. How much is it going to cost? We have no idea. They haven't posted that yet. But the second they do, we will tell you all about it.
So if you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't go to University of Michigan, this doesn't affect, well, I don't care. Mm-hmm. But you got to think that this is a precursor of
things to come.
Like whether it's other
It's only a matter of time
colleges,
till that pink bike's going to show up. That's all I know.
A pink bike, maybe tie into a movie, or you can get an Aerosmith bike
Oh
or
my God. If they did a Lizzo bike, I would die.
yeah, like I mean, I bet you're going to start seeing lots of things like that.
Or a Taylor Swift bike.
Yeah, Beatles bike.
I'm going to need a whole room. This is going to be like, I need a collector's edition, like garage to put them all in.
Do you though?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you do.
I don't think I do.
I don't think you do.
I'm pretty sure.
No. So, but it'll be interesting to see all the things that this brings forth for people.
That is so true.
So another week, another lawsuit. Peloton was hit with a patent lawsuit.
Yeah.
That we think might be more of a patent troll.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Now,
we need to say allegedly because they like to sue people.
That's true. Also, when we say a patent troll, we're not trying to defame them. That's literally what people who do the actions they are taking are called.
Yeah.
In the vernacular.
Right.
Apparently, the way that this works. Now, I have to say this is by one of our amazing helper bees, Lindsay. She put this together because, well, she understands legal things, being an attorney. So she put together this explanation. And basically, there's this company called Fleet Connect Solutions. They sued Peloton for patent infringement in federal court. Now, apparently, that's where all patent lawsuits are or that's where they're all brought.
Right.
So that's normal.
Yeah, because patents are federal.
Right.
Because if you had one for a state, that wouldn't do you much good.
But check this out. Fleet Connect has filed 25 lawsuits against companies since late 2020. And 4 of those were within the last week. Their suits are almost all filed in Texas federal courts, and they named the defendants. The named defendants include not just Peloton, but other companies that are well known, like Bridgestone, Penske, and Two Men with a Truck. So,
what kind of patent does Two Men with a Truck?
They're
just moving stuff, right?
Know.
Like I guess there's something. It just is a head scratcher.
I would agree. So the other thing is, Fleet Connect Solutions has only existed officially since April 2020. So they spent the COVID, as Lindsay said, the quarantine a bit differently than the rest of us. They went through and acquired nearly 50 patent assets from another company called Intellectual Ventures in December of 2020. Only 7 months later, it started filing its first lawsuits for patent infringements. Now, it also needs to be noted that Intellectual Ventures, which again was the predecessor of the new one, they have filed hundreds of patent lawsuits in the last 10 years. So what exactly is a patent troll? It's a company. In this case, once you own a patent, you can now sue other companies for infringement. So Fleet Connect does not invent things. They buy existing patents and then they look for possibilities of other companies
and a lot of times
to sue.
Very minor, obscure patents oftentimes. And then, look for people that have somehow accidentally crossed over, even tangentially or even maybe borderline hypothetically, hoping for quick settlements.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Basically, they're trying to get Peloton to settle. Why? Because Peloton is a freaking target.
Yeah.
Like everybody is suing Peloton, and they know that this year in particular, Peloton has been settling left and right. They have been knocking out these lawsuits. They are ripe to be taken advantage of. So what's going to happen? We don't know. This is brand new. We don't know if Peloton is going to do a settlement, which would end it quickly. And a lot of these companies do. If they're going to fight it or if it'll get dismissed. By the way, a lot of these companies that Fleet Connect has gone after, a lot of them have been dismissed. Several of them are still fighting.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the way this is a theory works is you cast the net wide and hope you can find a judge that goes, well, I guess kinda. And
well, and it's also frustrating because now I realize this is federal court, but like people talk all the time about money spent and ways to save money. And this is a ridiculous use of everyone's money and time.
Yeah.
And they're just doing it to try to get money. It's so gross. Like, it's so...
I mean, if somebody's patent is truly infringed upon...
That is not gross. That is not what I am talking about.
But the fact that this seems to have become a cottage industry is very frustrating.
That's what's gross.
And, you know, like there was a thing in podcasting a while back that somebody was like, oh, I invented the podcast. So no one can put out a podcast without paying me. And they started going after some big names. And I believe Adam Carolla and I think Joe Rogan, but I know Adam Carolla was one of them, was like, no, we're going to fight you. And they spent a lot of money fighting them because they were like...
They knew that they would go after people who could not fight them.
Because that was the thing. If they could get somebody like Adam Carolla or Joe Rogan, a really big one, to roll over and pay just even a little bit of money, there's an almost infinite number of podcasts that they could now go after. And so, you know, while I might not always be on the same side with those two, it was very admirable that they fought that battle. That is for sure. So Peloton has named an SVP of Apparel and Accessories.
Yes, Cedric Fletcher is the new senior VP of Peloton Apparel. It'd be very interesting to see what happens next. Now, he's quite the good fit for Peloton because
I see what you did there. Because it's apparel
outfit.
And it's a good fit. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he was most recently a chief product officer at True Classic, but he also held previous leaderships at Under Armour, Nike's Jordan Brand, and Calvin Klein. Makes a lot of sense because Peloton, especially since they're trying to do, you know, this new marketing piece where they're like, you can be anywhere, do anything.
Right.
It only makes sense that they want to do more with their apparel with that as well.
It almost makes me think that they're trying to grow it as a fashion brand and as more of a fashion brand than a souvenir, right? Like right now, it's like, I like Peloton. I want something that says Peloton on it. It makes me, you know, it sounds like they're trying to get more like, oh, I wear Nike things, I wear Peloton things.
If that's true, I think we can expect it to go back to limited amounts of things.
You think?
Yes.
Well, I mean, because like Nike and Under Armour don't have limited amounts of things.
Sure they do. Not everything. But like when a Jordan verse comes out, how quickly does that sell?
Okay, an Air Jordan, sure. But if you want a pair of Nike shoes, most of them are widely available.
Yes, absolutely. I just think it could lead to the most sought after things, the most wild, flashy things going back to those days of...
Maybe you'll see tiers, right? Maybe you'll see like instructor-led things, and those will be like their Air Jordans, but then you'll see kind of more standard Peloton branded things that aren't.
Yeah.
But if they do go down that road, then you have to start wondering what happens. A lot of these instructors have Adidas deals and Nike deals, and you know,
so true.
It's always a tough road for them to walk in that regard. So there was an interesting article this week on a website called thehustle.co, not the aforementioned Hustler.
No.
Just,
but he is also hustling.
There was probably an article there as well.
I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure.
But this sounds interesting. I haven't really had a chance to read it, but it says it's titled One Man's Quest to End Cheating in Virtual Cycling, which I find fascinating because I know how frustrated some people get that they think people are gaming the leaderboard.
It makes them so mad.
It does.
Yeah. And so it seems to focus on Zwift, but it also calls out lots of other things, including Peloton.
So it sounds like what he's saying is that the way it calculates your output is based on self-reported weight. Mm-hmm. And so riders could toggling their weight mid-race to falsely inflate their speed and power recording and cover the race course faster.
That's so gross.
Yeah. And so he thought like, oh, there's no way this would work. They'll catch it. And that it totally worked. And it's really problematic because with the rise of esports, I guess a lot of people are actually making money doing this.
That's crazy. And he also like is part of a team. Like it's part of esports. Wow. And that's crazy. I understand why people who are benefiting from some kind of esport, or, they're trying to get money out of it. I understand why they would be motivated to cheat. I will never understand why people are motivated to cheat on Peloton platform.
Right.
I don't get it.
To what end?
I don't get it.
Well, I guess maybe they're going to have to come out with bikes that when you get on are actually also a scale. It just knows what you weigh.
Well, that would be freaking depressing. You gained 5 pounds. Well, you know what? You, bike. Yeah, well, we will have to keep an eye on this and see if we can maybe we talk to this guy. That'd be fascinating.
That would be an interesting conversation. Maybe we should reach out and see if we can get a hold of him.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I want to see how he's going to shut it all down.
And coming up after this, we're going to tell you all sorts of instructor updates. Who got engaged, who's trying to have a baby, who's a New York Times bestselling author. I bet you probably at least know the answer to that one. So stick around. Matty Maggiacomo got engaged this week.
I am so freaking happy for that man. Oh my God. Listen, I cannot think of many people who deserve happiness in love more than Matty Maggiacomo, and I am just so ecstatic for him and his new fiance Evan. I can't wait to see the details of the wedding. I can't wait to see how all this goes down. And of course, they just got their new puppy not that long ago, so it's going to be just a happy little family.
Well, congrats to them.
Huge congrats.
Cody Rigsby is now officially a New York Times best-selling author.
That he is. We knew it was going to happen. There it is. A week later.
That was a full court press.
Yeah, it was.
He was everywhere, but it looks like it did the trick. So congrats to him.
Congrats to Cody.
Speaking of books, we found out today that Ross Rayburn has a book coming out.
I'm so excited about this one. I'm excited about it because he's actually talking about not just his life. He's talking about meditation specifically and all the benefits behind it, which there are many, and how he fell in love with it. And you can already pre-order the book. So we've got a link for that. We've got an article for that. And also, I just love Ross Rayburn. He's like the nicest guy.
He is very, very nice.
He's so sweet. So sweet. I got to say, it's refreshing. Hey, you can pre-order my book right now. There wasn't 9 months built up. Here you go.
It is a little bit overwhelming as someone who lives in the Peloton space, that you've made covering it such a large part of your life that it's just it's been book after book after book. I mean, I think the average person is an instructor wrote a book. Oh, okay, maybe I'll think about buying it.
I'm sure that's true.
Which is why they have to get so aggressive about it. But for someone who covers it all, it can be exhausting.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But congrats to Ross.
Absolutely. Mariana Fernandez this week posted on the gram about her fertility journey.
She did, and she also shared publicly, of course, that she has frozen her eggs. That has happened, and that way she can secure her ability to have children when she is ready to do that. I think that's really amazing. I love that these instructors do share these aspects of their lives.
That's a very personal thing to be.
So personal.
Yeah.
So personal. And it is not, I've never gone through the fertility journey that I know, but I've watched people go through how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And of course, going through it, you experience much different than watching someone go through it. So as a person seeing people struggle, you're only seeing 1/10 of the agony and the stress,
right? And
the poking yourself with all the needles and all the hormones and all the things. So I really appreciate when people are open and share these things.
I mean, I understand when they're not. It's just,
I do too.
It's just nice when someone is comfortable enough to do that.
Yes.
That I was saying it's nice makes it sound like it's not nice if they don't, but
I think what specifically speaks to me is when a person shares at that level. And what I mean is when these instructors who are so public take the time to share something that is not easy and let other people then by proxy be seen.
It helps
their
normalize
struggles
it.
being yes.
Yeah.
And that is amazing.
Leanne Hainsby commemorated a year since she first started chemo.
And again, this is another thing. Look how much she's shared about her chemo journey. Look how much she shared about her cancer journey. Again, normalizing and showing like even a person who is healthy, who takes care of themselves, still got breast cancer. I think that is an important conversation to have as well. And I can't believe it's already been a freaking year.
I know, right?
Oh my God. This year has gone so fast. I'm glad she's doing so well, though. I really am.
Absolutely. So Time Magazine spotlit?
Featured.
Spotlighted? Featured. Robin Arzon is one of America's top Latin leaders for 2023.
That she is. God. Can you imagine being featured in Time Magazine?
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
I know magazines aren't as important as they used to be.
No, they are not. That's true.
But it's still pretty cool.
Heck yeah. Congrats to Robin.
Camila Ramon spoke to Walmart this week as part of Latin and Hispanic Heritage Month about the importance of diversity in the workspace.
That's another important thing. I've heard so many people from the Latin community speak up about how much they love having these instructors that they feel represented by. And I'm really glad that, as always, I feel like we've said this a million times, but I still think it's true. The variety of instructors that Peloton has hired over the years.
Yeah.
It's impressive. It's really impressive. And it's pretty cool that they're getting, I would say the newer instructors are getting more visibility and showing that they are able to speak to somebody like a Walmart about inclusivity.
Absolutely.
That's a big deal.
So Ben Alldis is going to run the London Marathon.
In 2024.
In 2024.
Yes. Now, did you hear who his coach was? His running coach?
This is me we're talking to.
Well, I mean, I told you about it.
Oh.
That was really a softball.
Oh, sorry.
I think you had been drinking.
Leanne Hainsby.
No.
Oh.
John Hoskey.
John Hoskins.
And it was the cutest video that they did. Apparently, John Hosking can just develop a bromance with anybody, and it's like the best thing ever. So yeah, John Hosking is going to be Ben Alldis's run coach. They jokingly said in the video, Ben said that he tried to get Susie Chan and she couldn't make it, so he was waiting there to see who his coach was going to be. And here comes John Hosking. And then they do a whole reel with John having him do all these different workouts and stuff. But, you know, another thing I can't help but wonder, do you think maybe we're going to see another running program? It's been a while. So it's been about 3 or 4 years when Matt Wilpers and Bex Gentry did a marathon running program.
Right.
And I'm curious if we're going to see another one come out of this. And I would love for that to be the case. So we shall see.
We shall see. Speaking of marathons, Jeffrey McEachern finished the Berlin Marathon with amazing times.
What were his times, Tom?
Very fast. And then his mile pace was really fast. He finished the Berlin Marathon in 3 hours and 36 minutes.
Are you being serious?
I don't know. Look at the article and tell me. And his mile pace was 8:16.
Yes. Very good, Tom.
Did I get that right?
You did get that right.
And I just want to point out, I do not have this article
I'm
up on my
actually
screen.
really curious how you have that information in your head. I guess it's the same way you won trivia twice this week.
Twice. This is, I think, an important time to point out to people. They did a movie quote trivia.
They did.
That started at 6:15, but we thought it started at 6:30.
Whoops-a-daisies.
It was 25 questions. We walked in and we missed the first 6 questions.
We did. It came in on number 7.
And we still won.
People were not happy.
They were not happy at all. At all. Not in any way, shape, or form.
It's also funny to me how we did another movie trivia that was that same night, I think.
It was the TV one.
Well, we didn't do nearly as well on that one.
Oh yeah, there was another.
Was it the movie?
There was a movie quote one the next day, and we didn't tank, but we did not do near as well. We're on the one, it was just like I knew every single
one.
Yeah.
So much fun.
It was fun.
We love doing the trivia.
And it's so funny. People get so mad. And I'm like, dude, we won luggage tags.
Like,
Dial it down.
It's okay.
It's not that big of a deal.
Luggage tags. And then the other one we got
A tote bag.
A tote bag from Disney Cruise
Not even one of the really
Line.
nice tote bags.
No.
It was
It's made out of recycled cotton.
Yes.
I mean, I am grateful they give us anything.
For sure.
Because we do some of these for nothing.
Yeah. But it's just funny.
We did not win the costume contest last night, though.
We did not.
We did not.
But there were some really good costumes.
There were some.
So
really,
I don't feel bad about that.
And we weren't trying to win a costume contest. We were just trying to have fun.
For sure.
By the way, if you haven't seen pictures, you should roll on by my personal Facebook. We dressed up as Cruella de Vil.
And I was a Dalmatian.
And whenever they asked Tom what he dressed up as, he said woof.
I said woof. They're like, you are Cruella de Vil, and you are
woof.
woof.
Oh my God, crowd loved it. Not enough to keep us on the stage.
Yeah. Bastards. So, anyway.
Oh yeah, Jeffrey.
I had those times right.
You did have those times
there.
right. Yeah, the stuff that sticks in your head will never, ever cease to amaze me. But congratulations to Jeffrey McEachern. That's pretty freaking cool. He was real tired by the end. I think anybody who runs that fast would be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, a website called Grimy Goods, which is a long-running music blog based out of LA.
So you know that one.
No, but I clicked their about page because I was like, what is this?
Cool.
And they had an article about 5 women DJ producers you need to see at some music festival coming up in San Diego. So, and it was interesting because Jess King gets a mention, she's not appearing there, or if she is, they don't think you should go see her. I don't think she's appearing there. I'm just being shitty.
Okay.
But they were referencing one of the other DJs, and this is a woman who I thought it was a woman who wrote the article, but I honestly don't know. But the author was saying how the first time they heard this particular DJ was from a Jess King class.
Interesting.
And so I just thought it was interesting that someone who is wired into music enough that they write for a music blog that seems to be pretty well renowned, they got exposed to music by a Peloton ride.
Yeah,
that
that's
says
fair.
a lot. Says a lot.
It does. Plus, the Arctic Monkeys are on tour. I didn't know that.
How about that?
Yeah.
I would rather see the regular monkeys.
I know.
But
you've seen them plenty.
But yeah, that's really kind of
It's over.
not a thing.
I'm sorry.
No.
It's
Yeah,
sad.
It is. So
God, we're getting old.
we are. And coming up after this, we're going to tell you about the latest artist series and what celebrity we now know loves Peloton. So stick around. The latest artist series features none other than country music superstar Thomas Rhett.
Which I'm actually really excited about this because I took a class with Matt Wilpers during the little music thing that they just did, where the All for One series, like I can't even think of what it was called. And one of them was like a small class with Matt Wilpers, and it was all Thomas Rhett classes. And this is called the number ones. So they're just celebrating his 20 number one hits.
Because he has so many.
Yes, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a 30-minute class that is going to be just a run with Matt. And then there's going to be a ride with Hannah Corbin. Both of them will be covering the 30 minutes of 20 number one hits. Which
I guess they're going to have to leave a few on the table. They're going to be able to get to all 20 in 60 minutes.
Well, that's fair.
One wouldn't think anyway.
I don't know.
Unless they're doing medleys or remixes or something.
We shall see.
We shall see. We also have official confirmation of the Janet Jackson artist series.
Yeah. We knew it was coming, but now
Right.
we also have a full list of the artist series of classes. And boy, are there a ton, including a lane break. If you include the lane break, there are 15 different classes that are coming out for Janet Jackson. Wow. Yeah. And 2 lane breaks, by the way.
Oh, nice.
A 15-minute run on the lane break, and then there's going to be a 15-minute warm-up on the bike. So that's pretty darn cool.
Absolutely. So we have a new celebrity sighting, celebwell.com. talked about Chelsea Handler, and she mentions that she is a Peloton member.
I mean, it makes sense.
It makes
right?
sense. She seems to be in shape. Looks like she works out.
Yeah.
Not to be creepy, but so it stands to reason. But it's always fun to see another celebrity added to the ranks.
It is. And I just have to say, because I know somebody is going to send me a note. Yes, I know that Lars Ulrich is a Peloton user. And I know that he was just talking about it on a podcast. But Tom and I have talked about it before.
Yes.
So that's why we didn't include it this week as its own little thing, because
Right.
we've known that for a long time.
This is not new information.
No, and he is a huge fan. And yes, we did try to get him on the show.
Yes.
And we failed.
We failed.
But
Sad
if anybody's got
trombone.
an in,
Yeah, for sure.
if you got an in with Chelsea Handler, we would love that too.
Absolutely.
That would be fun. That's pretty cool.
Matt Wilper's Saturday Ride music requests are transitioning from the Power Zone pack to Team Wilpers.
Yeah. So if you have been a person who has been putting in your requests for the Saturday classes in the Power Zone Pack Facebook page, well, you can't do that anymore. Now you got to go over to Team Wilpers and do that. And that's taking place this week.
Yes.
Well, isn't that just an interesting little turn of events?
We will let you draw your own conclusions about that.
Yes.
But I guess if you want to get kicked out of Power Zone Pack, you can go over there and be like, hey, where do I put my music request? And then they'll probably... That seems like how that would play out.
I'm afraid to comment. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure somebody's going to boot me out of this room if I comment on
Yeah,
it.
I'm like, it's funny. They I just remember years ago when they slammed me into the group without asking me and then kicked me out. And I'm just like,
Oh, shit, Tom.
I was like, I didn't have to be here in the first place. So
wow.
Alex Toussaint has a double header. Well, it will have happened. No,
By
it's
the
happening. No, this comes out on
Saturday.
Friday. It's happening on Saturday. So if
Yeah.
you listen on day one, as you should, this will be news. But if not, then it's already happened.
There you go.
But he is teaching 2 classes in a day, which says something about his level of commitment, given everything he has going on right now. Like, he's super busy.
Yeah, he's so busy. But also, it's really just the ride to greatness. And then
You think he'd be there by now? He's been riding to greatness for like 6 years. Like, it would be like,
he's inviting everyone else to come along.
oh, I see.
It's a ride.
Well, he's got to be so far ahead. How are we even going to spot him?
Make a good point. Well, you can do a 20-minute ride to greatness with Alex on Saturday. And the other half of that doubleheader is a 30-minute Club Bangers ride, which that's his signature ride.
Are there any rides to mediocrity? That's more my speed.
I feel like if I answered that, somebody would be mad. Let's
You're
just
like,
say I have an opinion
Yeah.
that the answer is yes, and we will leave it at
Yes.
that.
Go get yourself an echelon. Mediocrity would be a level up for them.
Dang.
So Susie Chan is going to appear at the Cheltenham Literature Festival.
Listen to you pronouncing that UK name with confidence.
I mean, I don't know how else you'd say it, although they pronounce it Thames.
Exactly.
So who knows?
I'm not confident with anything London-oriented
they're
London.
Like, hello, there's a silent Q in there. Bloody Americans. Don't know how to read.
Well, they just add O's and U's. It's weird.
Add syllables to words like aluminium.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Oh, I think we're undocking.
We are moving.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Oh, bye, St. Martin. So Susie is going to be speaking, though, at the Literature Festival. Now, a lot of people miss this because if you look at all the information, it's all...
It's like buried.
It's buried. This lady, Louise Minchin, is kind of the headliner.
Right.
And so her name's all over everything.
But luckily for you listeners, we are avid followers of the Cheltenham Literature Festival.
You
and
know
we
it.
receive their newsletters weekly. And so we were very well aware of the goings on at the Cheltenham Literature Festival.
I mean, we wouldn't miss it.
So do you think this means Susie Chan has a book in the works? Appearing at a literature festival?
I don't know. I would not doubt it.
I'm just like, what are you going to literature festivals for if you're not writing a book?
It's fair.
But on the flip side of that, I wouldn't consider, with all due respect to the instructors, I don't know that I would consider their books literature.
I know what you're saying. Not in a mean way.
I don't consider I'll read Stephen King. I don't know that I consider it literature. Right? That's Charles Dickens.
Right.
And, you know what I mean?
It's really all of the books I dislike. Like I don't like literature in all.
It's the really fancy pants books with metaphors and things like that.
Let the red shoes go. Oh my goodness. But the reason it says that it's part of a broader theme at the festival because it's all about resilience and bravery.
Okay.
And I think that it is fair to say that Susie's achievements being a woman in endurance sports are a good fit.
That makes sense.
Badwater 135 that she did this year is a great example of both of those things. So I think that that's a big reason. I don't think it's just about like literature. It's like they just have a whole theme and she's a good person to fit that theme.
Gotcha.
But either way, people who would love to meet Susie and they are in the area, they could take part in this, and you still have time. That's the best part. And because it wasn't as obvious that she was going to be there as some of the things that we talk about,
right?
The tickets were still available today anyway.
How about that?
So if you're interested, those are she's going to make her appearance on October 15th. So you still have time as of this recording to get your tickets and meet Susie, which I really hope someday to do. Someday.
Okay, the TCO top 5. We reach out to you guys and you tell us your favorite classes and then we compile them and spit them back at you like an Eminem verse.
This week, it was really interesting. It seems like everyone is having a real hard time with going back to school.
Okay.
So everybody's favorites were super chill. Okay. We've got the favorite stretch. This was from Matty Maggiacomo, 20-minute evening stretch. And Marie K. Burdick, she said, not sure if we've mentioned this one, but these evening stretches are an amazing way to wind down. I took the one from August 4th. It's totally relaxing and almost as good as a Ross sleep meditation. That is high praise. Right there. Very high praise. We have not featured Maddie's evening stretches as a TCO top 5, but we did do a story about them. Tina reviewed them at theclipout.com. However, the next one comes from the favorite Peloton ride. This was a 30-minute feel-good ride with Allie Love. Allie Love's 30-minute feel-good ride from 9/17/23. A great class, and she even snuck in a little Tabata. Love her energy and love taking these feel-good rides on a Monday to start my week. That came from Carrie Pickett Marden. And then we have the favorite Peloton walk, 30-minute Disney walk with Jess King. Sarah Lester said that Jess King's 30-minute Disney walk from 9/24 was great. It wasn't an easy walk and not the music you would typically think of with Disney, but the energy was great and a ton of fun. A lot of contemporary songs as opposed to the classic. Sarah Kaplan Schmidt agreed, and she loved the unexpected choice of music. She added a song from the Descendants and said it's just EDM Disney music. Then we had the favorite Peloton row, 9/25/23. This one was a 30-minute classical row with Alex Karowski and Susan Dutton Burton. Favorite class this week was Alex K's 30-minute classical row. He explained the history of each musical piece he selected, so I learned a lot. It was so enjoyable, not boring, went by so fast, big climatic ending, highly recommend. And here's a tip. If you want to customize your rower foot straps with your favorite Crocs Jibbits like I have, it's easy and they fit perfectly.
Oh, watch your Jibbits. You don't want to get those caught in anything.
They're like she has a Boston on them. Like it's a little sports thingy that you can like close it. So a Jibbits is like a closure of some kind. But see, we didn't know that, Susan. You know us and anything sports related. So thank you for including the picture. Then we have the favorite unstackable run. Now, we didn't get a group recommendation this week, and this one came from Bex Gentry. I know. She's not actually part of the group, but we're just gonna go with it. Now, Bex showed off some extra color on her face after she took a hit run with Selena. She shared her experience in a since-expired Instagram story while sitting on the floor pointing to her cheeks. This is what happens after taking 2 Selena tread classes. Look at these stripes, referring to these sweaty red streaks on her cheeks. Bex did stack this with an endurance run as a cool down, but when you're an Olympic trials runner, you just do that sort of thing. For most of us, we're going to consider it an unstackable. That's a 30-minute hit run from Saturday, 9/23.
Kendall Toole has a new, or had, it's probably mostly gone by the time you hear this, a new spiritual gangster collaboration.
Yep.
Is it gangster or gangsta?
Gangster.
Gangster.
Yes.
Okay.
Gangster.
I don't have to be all street about it.
No, you do not. Good. I do love the color of this one. And it dropped really early the other morning, but I was afraid to post too early. I might piss somebody off. So I let it go.
Got to be careful.
I know. Somebody will get mad. So even though it came out at like 7 a.m., I waited. And then I waited too long and the day got behind me. So by the time I got around to posting it, the sports bras were already gone and people were upset. So
you'll have to run around with them jiggling.
Oh, my God. Oh, Tom.
And finally, we have This Week at Peloton.
We do. So a lot of stuff is happening. There's a beginner strength roll call. It's beginner's week. So if you haven't ever taken a roll call class, this is a great way to get started. There's also new pulse hour classes are starting. Well, they're not starting. They've been around, but I guess they're all new ones. Bar Pilates. There's going to be one from Hannah Corbin, Anna Greenberg, Aditi, Allie Love, Kristen McGee, and those are all going to be at 9:30 a.m. Eastern this week. And then there is the Blue Beetle movie ride, and that's going to be taking place on the September the 28th. So it'll be taking place by the time you hear this. I'm really confused why they're doing this
so late,
weeks after the movie started.
It came out like 5 or 6 weeks ago.
I'm super confused about that. But I will say that your real spoilers. You guys reviewed this movie.
We did an episode on Blue Beetle.
So if you want to hear the spoilers review, you can go get that over on RealSpoilers.com.
I wonder if it's tying into its VOD release or like if it'll be on HBO Max that week, and that they're trying to. Or is it already on? I don't even know. But yeah, it's just odd that they're doing something around that movie so late in the game. Like, and clearly that's studio driven.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I wonder if it has Peloton wouldn't just decide to do that.
I wonder if it has something to do with the strike.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. That's a good question. Also, Jen Sherman's Cover to Cover series is back this week. People really love that one. So it's going to be a fun one. And that's back starting this week.
And we've got one birthday this week. It's on October 3rd, and it is Nico Serrani.
How are we in October?
Because time is linear.
Happy birthday, Nico.
And coming up after this, we're going to talk to Jacob Morgan. He's a futurist.
And you're going to hear all about what a futurist is.
Yeah, because we didn't know.
No, we did not. We had questions.
We are pastists, but not past this.
No.
Because we hold grudges. So stick around. Joining us today via the magic of ZoomTube is Jacob Morgan. He is a trained futurist.
Yeah.
Which he will have to explain.
Absolutely.
And one of the world's leading authorities on leadership and the future of work and the employee experience. And he's written 5 best-selling books. That sounds like I'm talking about Dr. Jen now.
It does.
I'm not going to rattle them all off, but the most recent one was Leading with Vulnerability, or I guess it should be out right about now if we're doing our jobs properly. Hey, Jacob, how's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Well,
you guys seem like you have way too much fun on this show.
Well, we try. We try because, whenever you have that side thing, that hobby that you turn into also sort of a kind of job, you better enjoy it because you spend a lot of time on it. You probably know how that is, right?
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
Okay, we have to start. Usually I start with Peloton questions, but we got to start with futurist because I think there are a lot of people that are raising their eyebrows right now. Like, what does that mean? Please explain.
So this was a certification I got at the University of Houston, and it is a professional certification in the realm of foresight. So people who have been on LinkedIn will probably know that sometimes people just put futurist in front of their title because it looks good and it sounds cool. But believe it or not, this is actually a field of study. It's something that you can get a master's degree in. It's something you can get certified in. So years ago, I think it was 16 or something like that. I went to the University of Houston, spent some time there, and got this certification in foresight. And really what it is, it teaches you how to think about the future. There's different frameworks, there's different tools that they give you, different questions that you can ask. And it's just kind of a fun and useful way that you can try to think about things in the future, try to anticipate trends that are coming up. And for me, somebody who writes and talks a lot about leadership and business, I thought that was a very useful skill. I play a lot of chess, and chess is always about thinking several moves ahead. And I thought it would be very interesting to kind of learn more about how to do that in the business world. So that's where the certification came from.
So I'm just curious, just real high level. We don't need to be certified ourselves. Like in chess, there are a finite number of variables for you to contemplate. I mean, obviously, there's a lot, which is why you got to be really smart to be good at it. But in real life, it's infinite, the variables. So what can they teach you that helps you predict, like, or if we all get hit by an asteroid, here's what you do then?
Definitely not the asteroid.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, there are more possible moves in a game of chess than there are atoms in the universe.
What?
There are more possible moves in a game of chess than there are seconds that have elapsed since the Big Bang.
But that's total moves. But if you're in one specific moment in time moving forward, it's been winnowed. It's still crazy high, but...
Crazy high, yes. And again, it depends on the situation, depending on what's going on the board position. But yeah, I mean, chess is almost a limitless game. It's almost an infinite game because of the number of possible variations and moves that are out there.
And see, I always say the same thing about chutes and ladders. And people don't believe me. I don't get the same level of respect.
I remember how to play that game. So in life, it's kind of similar, right? So imagine, for example, you're running a business. And you are trying to make a strategic business decision. You want to acquire a company, you want to make an investment in something. Well, you can approach it in a couple of different ways. One is, okay, I'm going to make this investment. Business is going to grow. We're going to be great. But thinking like a futurist, using this concept of foresight teaches you to think in terms of different scenarios and possibilities. So what are some of the other possibilities that might happen if you make that investment? What are some of the things that could help make that possibility come to fruition or to keep that possibility from coming to fruition? And so it's a series of these types of questions where when you're faced with a potential roadblock, when the scenario that you ideally want to happen doesn't happen, you can be prepared to kind of take those additional steps. Going back to the chess analogy, it's equivalent to playing a game of chess. And instead of only thinking that you can make one move on the chessboard and your opponent can only make one move on the chessboard, you think in terms of scenarios. Well, I could move my knight and my opponent might move their bishop. But if they don't move their bishop, they could also castle. And if they do that, then I'm going to do this. And that's ultimately what this concept of foresight and thinking like a futurist entails, is how do you train and practice thinking in that kind of a way. So it's not about predicting the future, but it's helping make sure that you're not surprised by what the future might bring. So if you're on a chessboard, it's kind of like, well, I have a good idea of what my opponent can do, but you never want to be playing a game of chess. Your opponent does something and you're like, oh my God, like I didn't know that was coming, because then you're in trouble.
Right.
Okay.
All
right. It sounds a lot like project management, actually.
I was thinking that too. It's like a Gantt chart for...
Yeah, because like in the project management world, you're always like trying to think of like all the possible roadblocks that could come up and then mitigating those, right?
Yeah. So there's a very helpful, and I can give you just kind of like a useful visual. And so one of the famous tools that a lot of futurists use is called the cone of possibilities. And you can Google this. Even I've made an image about that. There's a lot of like visuals and illustrations about it. And so the way that this kind of cone looks, so imagine you're peering through the narrow end of a cone. And the narrowest part of the cone represents the closest time horizon. It's what's closest to you.
Okay.
And the narrow part of the cone, it's it's narrow. There's not a lot that you can see. But the farther out you look into the cone, the broader the cone becomes. and the more space there is, and that represents the farthest time horizon. So this concept of thinking like a futurist basically means that a lot of us are really good at knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, maybe the next month, maybe if we're lucky, a couple of months out. But the farther out we think, the farther out we peer down this cone, the broader it becomes, and the more possibilities and the more scenarios are possible. So if I ask you what's going to happen tomorrow, you'll probably know. If I ask you, what do you think is going to happen 3 years from now in your life or in the world? All of a sudden you can rattle off all sorts of different scenarios and possibilities. So there are really 4 questions that kind of go to this concept of the cone of possibilities. So the first question is, what is it that you want to happen? So if I were to ask you, you have a vision, you have an idea, like what's your ideal scenario of what you want to happen, right? That's one of them. The second question is, well, what do you think is likely to happen? You can think of a very practical example. We think about AI. We think about the realm of things like ChatGPT and what's going to happen to employees and jobs, right? This is a very practical example of you can try to anticipate, well, what do you want to happen? Well, I would like a lot of the mundane, boring aspects of work to be given to technology, and I would love to focus on the human aspect of work. Well, what do you think is likely to happen? Well, I mean, if you look at the trend that we're starting to see with how good technology is becoming, it's certainly possible and likely that we will get to a point where lots of jobs will get automated, where lots of these kind of mundane aspects of work are going to get replaced by technology. And then you start to look at these other types of scenarios. Well, what else is possible? Maybe things are going to be the same way in 5 years from now as they are today. Maybe we're not going to see a lot of change. Maybe there's going to be a lot of regulations and rules that's going to stifle technology and keep it from making the impact that we think it's going to have. So you start to ask yourself these types of questions. And as you move down this cone, based on what's happening, you can kind of adjust and see what you need to be doing. But it's really just about making sure you're thinking about the different options that are out there instead of assuming there's only one path that you can take.
And how do you feel that this being a futurist has affected or changed being a leader? You also do a lot of leadership. You have books about that. How do you think that's changed things?
In my previous book, ironically called The Future Leader, I interviewed 140 CEOs of companies around the world. And I asked them, what is the number one most important skill that we need to have today inside of our organizations? And by far, the vast majority of these 140 CEOs said the skill of the futurist. And that is being able to think in terms of scenarios and possibilities instead of just picking and anticipating a single path and assuming that that's what's going to happen. Because we live and we work in a world that's changing very quickly. The pace of change is we always talk about it, right? How fast it is, how much change we're going through, how much turbulence there is. So we need to be really good at being adaptable, at being agile, at being able to pivot. And that's really what the skill of the futurist is about. Looking at the different scenarios and possibilities and being able to quickly pivot when you encounter obstacles or roadblocks or challenges to make sure that you're not, kind of stifled and you just can't move forward.
To make sure you're not Sears.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or Montgomery Wards. Or
Sears, Blockbuster. I mean, you can go through the list of so many of these organizations out there where they failed because they had a single track that they thought the future was going to be. And when anything was telling them, hey, that track is likely not going to happen, they're like, no, screw that. Like, we're going to make it happen. We know what we're doing.
We've been doing this for 100 years. We can't be wrong. Yeah. And
they haven't been paying attention. And not only not paying attention, it's more like they saw, right? Obviously, Blockbuster was aware of Netflix, but they're like, there's no way, right? That's not going to happen. That wasn't even on their radar as far as a possibility or a scenario. They had the one path, charge ahead at all costs, ignore anything else that comes our way, and you disappear.
It's always ironic, like using Blockbuster as an example, when a disruptor gets disrupted, right?
Yeah.
Like people didn't necessarily think in terms of disruptors when Blockbuster started, but they were, right? Like it was the idea of watching movies at home was very new and it was very scary to the film industry until they figured out how to bake it into the business model, and then they loved it. But they completely flipped the script on how people engaged with their with media, and then they had it done to them like not too far into their life cycle in the grand scheme of things. They really only lasted about a generation.
Yeah, it's crazy. And there are lots of stories. Kodak is obviously a famous example that people keep talking about as well. So the business world is filled with those types of stories or examples where leaders of organizations, they go down that one path, and when something gets in the way, it crumbles and everything falls apart.
I'll give you one that didn't even last a full life cycle.
Oh,
Clubhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when Clubhouse was worth like $9 billion for about 4 minutes?
Yeah.
And they were
Clubhouse,
like, we're not going to sell this. We're going to take over the world.
Yeah.
And then
remember Quibi?
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was dumb from
What was
the jump.
Quibi? I don't remember Quibi.
It was like
Quibi
TV on your phone.
Jeffrey Katzenberg, who's a big TV media executive, teamed up with, I believe it was Meg Whitman. They put billions of dollars into this company to do, like short form content to be viewed on your phone. They hired all the top actors and this and that, and it just poof, lasted a couple months.
Yeah.
Sold for parts.
Yeah, they were throwing our money like crazy, and they were actually filming their shows in like on your phone dimensions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, because it shit the bed so fast.
They disappeared quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'm curious then how vulnerability plays into all of this then. Because you don't usually, I don't think about leaders being vulnerable. I know the leaders I've worked with.
Or can I try and answer?
Oh, I mean, that's between you guys.
My guess is because they're not vulnerable, and that's the problem. Like they're too egotistical to say, maybe we don't know what we're doing. Instead, they say, no, we're going to sit here and keep renting people DVDs because, God damn it, that's what we've always done.
Ooh, is he right? Yeah. Is he right? Did he get one?
Sort of. So
I'll take it.
There's a distinction that I really try to make between vulnerability versus leading with vulnerability.
Okay.
So let me kind of split those two apart. Vulnerability is something that a lot of people are familiar with. We've all experienced. We all know what it feels like to be vulnerable. And for most of us, it is the assumption that you say or do something that puts yourself in a position where what you said or did could be used against you in some way to cause emotional harm. Sometimes physical harm, but for most of us, it's usually emotional harm. So for example, I say something, somebody else can use it against me, I don't get promoted, or I get fired, or whatever, something that somebody can use against me. And that's what a lot of us think of vulnerability. And so I always wondered, in our personal lives, it's clear why you want to be vulnerable with friends, with family members, right? You're trusting them. It's okay to kind of be emotional and share things like that. But then I wondered, is it really just that easy and applicable and practical inside of a work setting where we have a different dynamic? Because at work, now all of a sudden we have a hierarchy, we have a structure, we have teams and functions, we have dollars and cents that are at play, we have deadlines and timelines, we have pay. I mean, it's a very different environment. It's a very different structure. Whereas in our personal lives, that kind of structure does not exist. And then I was also interested, well, what happens if you're in a leadership role? So now I'm responsible for people. Now I'm responsible for the fiscal aspect of a team or a business or a function. Is vulnerability for me the same as it is for everybody else? And it turns out it's not. And one of the stories that I give in the book is of Hollis Harris. And he used to be the former CEO of Continental Airlines. And the company was struggling. We all know it ended up going to United. The company was struggling for several years. And Hollis Harris was asked to address his entire workforce. And so he sent out a memo to all of his 40,000 employees. And he said to them, he acknowledged that the company was struggling. It was going through tough times. And he didn't really know what to do. And his best piece of advice that he gave in this memo was he said, all of the employees at Continental Airlines should pray for the future of the company. And the next day, he was fired. Now, what Hollis Harris did in that situation was very vulnerable. And this story was actually told to me by Doug Parker, the CEO of American Airlines. And what he said is, Hollis was vulnerable, but there was no leadership. So what I always tell people is you should not be vulnerable inside of your organization. You should lead with vulnerability. So just the vulnerability piece is the emotional exposure. It's kind of what Hollis Harris did. Now let's take another example of another CEO named Fleetwood Grobler. He's the CEO of a company called Sasol, South African energy company, 30,000 plus employees. He took over as CEO when the company was $13 billion in debt. And this was even before the pandemic. Then the pandemic happened. The company is just nosediving. And the banks were about to come in and take everything over. And Alldis, too, had to address his entire workforce. But he gave a very different message. He also was vulnerable. He acknowledged the company is struggling. I don't know the exact path that we're going to take going forward. So he was vulnerable in that regard. But then he added the leadership piece. And the leadership piece was, I have a vision of where this business can go. I have an idea, a picture in my mind of where we can end up in the future. I don't know the exact steps I'm going to take to get there, but if you work with me to help me figure out that exact path, we can rebuild trust with our customers and with our employees, and we can turn our business around and we can be successful. And that's exactly what they did. So there is a difference between vulnerability and leading with vulnerability. And it's something very simple. It's called the vulnerable leader equation. Leadership plus vulnerability equals leading with vulnerability. And too often what we see inside of our organizations is we show up to work and we say, I need help. I'm struggling. I don't know how to do this. I made a mistake. And at a certain point, your leaders and your peers are going to look at you and they're going to say, what the heck are you doing in this job?
Yeah.
If you keep showing up, talking about all of this stuff, why are you here? Like, why are you in this role? So think of a very classic example, right? I mean, let's say, I work for you, right? So I go to you and I say, hey, Crystal, and you assigned a project to me and I screwed it up, right? I made a mistake. Being vulnerable would be, I go to you, Crystal, and I say, hey, Crystal, I am so sorry. I know you gave me this project. I really messed it up. I'm sorry. That's a vulnerable thing to do.
Yeah.
Leading with vulnerability would say, Crystal, I'm so sorry. I screwed this up. I made a mistake. Here's what I learned from the mistake that I made. Here's what I'm going to commit to doing to make sure that that does not happen again in the future. That's leading with vulnerability. And that is the critical piece that we oftentimes forget inside of our organizations. One of the CEOs I interviewed is Steve Bilt. He's from Smile Brands. It's a dental healthcare provider. He gave me this really great analogy. And he said, if you're in 6th grade and you're showing up to 6th grade and you keep asking about 4th grade math, eventually the teacher and the other students are going to look at you and they're going to say, hey, this is 6th grade. You keep asking us about 4th grade math. Like, what's the deal? Similarly, let's take that same scenario. I'm in 6th grade asking about 4th grade math, but now I say, hey, you know what? I have a tutor. I'm going to stay after school. I'm going to get help from the teacher. I know the homework said to do 10 problems. I did 20 problems to try to get better. That's the leadership piece. So in other words, you need to demonstrate that you are learning and growing and trying to close that gap. And inside of your organization, especially if you want to get into a leadership role, you have to demonstrate that leadership piece, not just the vulnerability piece. And one last thing I'll say on this, because I know I've been talking for like 15 minutes straight. So leadership and vulnerability is about competence and connection. Being good at your job and being able to connect with people. Let's just say, for example, I'm really good at connecting with people, but I'm lacking in the competence piece. And then I go to one of your employees and I say, hey, what do you think about Crystal? And somebody will say, oh, Crystal, and this is, again, assuming you're really good at the competence piece. You're good at the leadership aspect.
Safe
Somebody
assumption.
will say, yes. So somebody will say, oh, Crystal is so great at her job. She's closing deals. She's bringing in a lot of money. She's super smart. She's just really good at her role. But it's really hard for me to connect with Crystal. Like, we don't have that same chemistry. I don't feel that sense of engagement and motivation. Like, it's just really hard for me to connect with Crystal on a human level as a leader. Let's take the opposite scenario. Crystal is really great at the connecting piece, but she struggles at the leadership piece. Again, I would go to one of your employees and say, what do you think of Crystal? And they'd say, oh, Crystal is so great. I love hanging out with her. She's awesome. She's engaging. We have a great time. She's just the best. But I'm not really sure Crystal is the right person to be leading this team because she hasn't demonstrated that she's really good at her job. She seems to be struggling in those aspects. So if you're only good at connection, then people will assume that you are incompetent. If you're only good at competence, people are going to think that you're a robot. So you got to have both of these things at play: leadership, vulnerability, competence, and connection.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So what about the new book coming out in October? So tell us about that. Is that covering all of these topics?
Yeah, that's the whole premise of the book.
Wow.
The whole premise of that book is lead with vulnerability. Don't just be vulnerable at work, especially if you're a leader. You lead with vulnerability. And that is the entire and everything. That's kind of the thesis of it. And all the frameworks and the ideas and concepts kind of support how to make that happen.
I love it.
Yeah. So vulnerability without a plan is just weakness.
It's not even just weakness, but you will undermine your own credibility. You will undermine your own status. You will undermine your own work, right? Because essentially what you're doing, and a lot of people do this, we sometimes use vulnerability as a way to justify poor performance, right? So, hey, Jacob, why did you mess up on that? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have the time. I'm sorry. I screwed up. I'm sorry. I didn't have the budget. I'm sorry. I'm just going through a hard time. I'm sorry. At a certain point, nobody's going to care about that.
Right.
At a certain point, you have to demonstrate that you were hired for the role to do a good job. And that doesn't mean that you should treat people as cogs, but it does mean that you need to demonstrate at least that you are trying to close that gap for yourself, right? I mean, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do those things, but share what you learn. Share how you're going to get better. Share how you're going to move forward, how you're going to create progress. Don't just focus on the vulnerability piece, on the things you're struggling with. Talk about the leadership.
Okay. So I know you told us this off the air, but you were a pandemic purchaser of the bike. Is that correct? Okay. So I'm really curious, given all of your background, what you thought of the old CEO leaving, the new leadership coming in, just a high level. I'm not looking for I'm not trying to get you to put you on the spot and make you say negative things. I'm just curious if you put all that into play and had opinions about it.
Not really. I mean, my wife looks at that a lot because she studies and looks at customer experience, and she's looked at Peloton and the trends that they've had over the years. I honestly am not super abreast on the changes with Peloton. So I don't really know, honestly. I mean, I know John Foley was the CEO. I know the company had a huge, crazy valuation. Then everything plummeted. It seems like they tried to capitalize on that pandemic wave. And going back to that futurist scenario, it sounds like maybe they never took a step back and thought about what happens when the pandemic ends?
Yeah.
What happens when things do go back to some sense of normalcy? What should we be doing with the business? And I don't know. To me, it just seems like some of those conversations were not happening. And it was just pandemic. And then,
And cliff.
It does feel like that.
Yeah.
So how did you and your wife get into Peloton then? How did that happen?
So there's a lot kind of on the Peloton side. First, originally how a Peloton made its way into our house was with my wife. I feel you. Yeah. So we used to live in the Bay Area. We live in Los Angeles now. So we used to live in the Bay Area across the street from a gym that we used to go to. And then of course the pandemic happened, and we're both very much into fitness and health and exercising. It's a big, huge part of our lives, probably the biggest part of our lives. And we were trying to figure out, what are we going to do? And my wife was saying, oh, we should get a Peloton. And I was doing some research on Peloton, and I was like, holy shit, this thing's $2,500. That's what are you thinking? I thought we were going to get one of those Aerodyne bikes, a couple $100, get in the garage, work up a sweat. She's like, no, I want this Peloton bike. I want the classes and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't want that thing in this house. I don't want a $2,500 bike. So of course the bike is in the garage.
I say, as a futurist, you should have known that your wife was going to get the bike.
I did.
That's how this plays out every time.
Yeah, but you notice he said it didn't make it to the house though. So he still Yeah, it was in the garage. I see what you did there.
It's still in the garage now.
See?
Now I use it a lot, and she uses it in the garage. Now has a treadmill too. So yeah, she got it mainly because of the pandemic, and then I started using it. And I'm like, oh wow, this thing is pretty damn cool. And now it's become a big part of I use it almost every day. So I still work out in my garage. I have weights. I do cardio on the Peloton. Even my wife, as I mentioned before we hit record, we really wanted to get the Tread Plus. We waited for it for well over a year. And at a certain point, my wife is like, screw this, I need a treadmill.
Yeah.
So she bought a different treadmill, but still uses the Peloton treadmill courses. So she still uses Peloton treadmill on the treadmill that we have. But it's interesting. So Peloton became an interesting part of my life for a few reasons, not just from the health and wellness perspective, just from exercising, but it also kind of ties into the book too. Because, so to give people a little bit of context, my parents are from the Republic of Georgia, which is the former USSR. Communist regime. They were persecuted for being Jews. It's not an environment where you want to be vulnerable. You're not going to talk about feelings and emotions in communism where people can just come and like just take your stuff.
That's fair.
So I grew up where mental and physical toughness was always encouraged to me, especially by my dad, to be number one. Right? Nobody gives a shit about your problems. Don't talk about your feelings, your emotions. Don't apologize. Like nobody cares. My mom tried to emulate more of the vulnerability and emotional openness, but ultimately, young boy, I grew up watching my dad. Even to this day, when I go to my dad's house, he's like, "Hey, come over here." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, what is it?" He's like, "Hey, how many dips can you do?" Like literally, I was at his house a couple of days ago. He takes his shirt off. He's like, "Come count how many dips I can do. See if you can do more." So
it's like the Mandelbaums on Seinfeld.
I think
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly
I think my dad and your dad could be friends.
Yeah, or it's dips, it's push-ups, it's pull-ups, it's whatever. Like sometimes when my kids go stay with him, I'm like, Dad, you should put sunblock on the kids. He's like, they don't need sunblock.
That's what they have skin for.
Yeah, it's like, what? Stop putting that on your kids. I'm like, Dad, it's 100 degrees outside. Put sunblock on the kid. I never use sunblock. Why do they need? I'm like, all right. So anyway, so that's how I grew up, right? Where you should never be vulnerable. And so an interesting thing happened to me a couple of weeks after signing the contract for my book. Now, this was a few years ago. It was the middle of the pandemic. It was during the holidays. And I'm standing in my bathroom, brushing my teeth. This is around 7:00 in the morning. And, my wife is in the other room getting our kids, waking them up and getting them ready for school. And all of a sudden I start to feel really weird. My heart starts beating really fast, like 130, 140 beats per minute. I'm breathing heavy. My vision gets blurry. I'm overcome with like this big fear of panic and dread. I'm sitting there thinking like, holy shit, I'm having a heart attack. So I'm screaming for my wife. I'm like, Blake, something's wrong. And, she has me lay down on the bed. And then my body starts like convulsing, kind of like if you've ever had the flu and you get the chills or the shakes, like that was going on to me. And I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. I couldn't see a doctor because it was during the holidays. I couldn't get into urgent care because they were filled with COVID patients. And so I was basically stuck like this for several days where I would feel fine for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, randomly, it's like, I'm dying. I'd feel fine for a little bit. And then, oh my God, I'm dying again. Finally, I get in to go see a doctor. And the doctor, they do an EKG scan on me. They look at all these different biomarkers and they're like, yeah, you're super healthy. You're good. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
I'm thinking I'm going to die here.
I don't feel good.
Yeah. And the doctor's like, you're great. But then she says, you might want to go see a different kind of a doctor. And she's pointing at her head, like signaling I should go see a therapist. And I'm like, okay, that's bullshit. I'm not going to go see a therapist. So I'm talking to a therapist and a couple sessions in, it became very clear what was causing these panic attacks for me. And it was the very fact that I had committed to writing a book about vulnerability when I myself was not vulnerable. And my body, my brain, my heart, my soul, everything was like, screw you.
We'll make you vulnerable.
Exactly. And so that was a very kind of pivotal moment for me because it was my body's way of saying, wow, you're an idiot. You just committed to exploring something that you don't believe in and that you don't talk about. And so the reason why Peloton came into play here is because what emerged after having sessions with a therapist became that I needed to do a better job of focusing on my well-being. I needed to get better talking about feelings and emotions. I needed to get better doing all of these different things that I didn't do. And so Peloton meditation became a part of that. So I started doing Peloton meditation and these calming techniques. And I started really relying on Peloton, both in terms of exercise and in terms of mental well-being and mental calm to kind of help me. And it was actually a huge plus for me. So it became a very important resource and a tool for me on the meditation aspect on the fitness side.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. What a great story.
Especially because like people come on here a lot, obviously, and talk about their Peloton, but typically it's like, oh, I exercise this way or I utilize that or maybe yoga, but rarely does someone come on and say meditation, or if they do, it's ancillary, right? It's like, oh, and I do those sometimes. You know?
And my wife actually uses, so I haven't used the meditation aspect as much recently since all the panic attacks and stuff went away. My wife still uses it every single day, sometimes twice a day.
Wow.
So it's we're gonna get her on your podcast.
Yeah.
Crystal uses it, but that's because of me.
I'm like, I've had enough Tom today. It's time for my meditation.
Yes. So between the two of us, we're using Peloton 3, 4, 5 times a day, whether it's the bike, the treadmill courses, the meditation, the exercise, the boot camp classes my wife loves. So it's very much ingrained into how we start our days. It's a big part of how we start our days.
Wow, that's really cool.
That is awesome. So do you yourself use both pieces of equipment that you use, or are you just a bike guy?
No, I like to use both. So it's primarily the bike because my wife is usually stealing the treadmill, but whenever she's not on it, I try to hop on there as well. So I try to do both. Look,
you didn't want any of it. So
that's true. She reminds me of that frequently. She's like, "Oh, you're using the treadmill, huh?" I'm like, shut up. Sometimes I even do the outdoor running as well. Like I've done a couple of those classes too. So running outdoors and doing those classes has been awesome. So I'm a big fan.
Oh, have you?
Because we tried to get some of our friends to get Pelotons and they bought them and then they returned them. Like they couldn't. Yeah, I like a lot of Alex Toussaint's classes because it I like the militant, my dad mentality of like, nobody gives a shit about your excuses. Like, shut up and go. That's not for everybody, obviously.
For sure.
But yeah, we had some friends that tried to use Peloton and they're like, oh no, I just like the scenic routes, but I already did all the scenic routes. Now I can't do any. And like, I don't want people yelling at me and this and that. I'm like, all right.
But most of the instructors don't yell. I don't understand that.
I see. And I need I don't like the calm. All right, today we're just going to get on the bike and you're just going to.
And that's okay. I just feel like there's.
It's funny when you get people have this opinion of Peloton, like, oh, it's just someone yelling at you while you run. And it's like, but that's not really what they do. I think I've only had
one experience. And now I don't take a lot of Alex classes. I don't take a lot of Jess King classes. But like, I've only been yelled at by one instructor and it was in their class. It was live. And I have never gotten over it. Like I don't like that instructor. I'm not even going to tell the story because I don't want anybody to hate on me. I don't want anybody to at me. But
I love the Alex Toussaint classes because I haven't, to be fair, I haven't tried all the instructors.
Yeah.
I've tried Ali Love. I've tried, what's the other guys? I've tried Tunde's classes and there's some other, bikers that I've tried there as well. But I don't know. I haven't been able to connect as much with those classes as I have with kind of Alex's style.
I just feel like Alex is positive. That's the interesting thing. Because I feel like when he's like, positive. You woke up today, smile. Like, that's just like, how can you not smile?
But it's positive and like no bullshit, no excuses at the same time. And I like that combination of positive, no bullshit. And it's very much kind of how I grew up. So I really resonate with those types of classes.
That makes sense.
It's funny because it's like that sort of training obviously works for people because it used to get utilized almost exclusively. But it's also like I, to this day, hate sports.
Yeah.
And it's because I kept running into people like that would and I wasn't good. That didn't help. But like they would get visibly mad when I wasn't good, and I'm like, well, now I don't want to get good. Anything like that. So
it's just interesting how different people react to different kinds of styles. Like I like classes that I just feel like I had fun. I worked hard, but I just had fun, like Jen Sherman, when you do a class with Jen Sherman and you're singing the whole time and it's like, they're all your favorite songs from the 80s. How can you not smile when you're done,
Yeah,
like that's just good
I'm also
stuff.
super competitive. So
Jacob's over here like, my book's not called Exercise with Vulnerability.
yeah, there have been times where I've gotten on that Peloton and there's kind of the leaderboard.
Oh yeah.
And there have been a few times where like I'm close to the top or somebody's very close to me. And by the time I get off the bike, I literally feel like I'm going to die. Like my heart rate's up to 180 and I'm like, I got to stop doing this because one day it's not going to end well. So I try to kind of be more mindful because sometimes you get the adrenaline going and you're like, I'm just going to beat you, you son of a... And you're like, oh my God, I don't feel good.
Where did that come from?
That's happened to me a few times, and my wife would look at me and she's like, "Are you okay? you look a little crazy there. Get out."
So would you say Alex is your favorite instructor then?
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. I mean, I use Alex for all the bike stuff. I've used some of his stuff for the treadmill, but especially for the bike, like when it's a lot of heavy exertion and hard workouts and pushing yourself, I find that his approach to me resonates the most. Like, let's go. Nobody cares about your excuses, as opposed to something a little bit more lighthearted and positive. Like, today's a great day. Like, you can do it. I want the like militant, reminding me of like communist Russia, like shut your face and
Suck
pedal.
it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, exactly.
You could be in a gulag.
Yeah, exactly. That approach, as weird as it sounds, kind of resonates more with me. Not to say that Alex is,
But he's as
Thanks.
close as you're going to get probably
Yeah.
in a Peloton
Yeah,
class.
yeah.
I feel
Well,
like
maybe
if Stephen Little were still around, you would
Oh,
really like him because
for sure.
that's how he was, and like he would really it's been many years. His classes have been purged for a long time now, but he would really crack me up because he would like sit there and sip his coffee in his little Hello Kitty mug first thing in the morning during 6 o'clock classes, and he would like say something like just really kind of like rude, but with a smile, and get away with it because he just had this really sarcastic way of doing things.
Oh, that's funny.
I just remember one time he's like, "Oh, did your class stop today? Like did your bike not work today?" And then you complained to me that you couldn't get your workout done. Pivot. Get over it. If you want that workout bad enough, you'll do it, won't you? It's just like, yeah.
I like that approach. No complaining, no whining, just get it done.
All right.
But
Fair
now I'm
enough.
motivated to try some of the other instructors too.
Okay, so I think we've got your advice for newbies.
Yes.
Suck it up.
Yes.
That's what Jacob says.
For
be,
sure.
be vulnerable at work, lead with vulnerability, but suck it up on the bike. Got it.
Yeah, do it or don't, right? I mean, it's a lifestyle. It's not, I think a lot of people forget that exercising is one aspect of fitness. It's one aspect of the lifestyle, but you have to do all of it. You have to eat healthy. You have to get enough sleep. You have to drink water. You have to pay attention to how you're living. Like, you can't just go on the Peloton and exercise and then go eat like a box of cookies afterwards. Like, it doesn't balance out like that.
So
that's-
true.
I get frustrated sometimes with family members or with friends. They're like, I'm exercising. I'm on the Peloton, but I'm not seeing the results. I'm like, well, maybe don't go to McDonald's afterwards. And then, right? It's
about balance.
It's a whole holistic approach to just living, which I think a lot of people forget.
True.
Absolutely. So what is your leaderboard name?
Chess Jacob.
Oh, okay. Because you go back to the chess thing. Yeah. All right. Okay. So you talked about
I'm
being.
going to take all of you down. Whoever's listening, you add me on there. I'm coming for you.
I was going to say, you're the guy that's during cool down. You keep going, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
That's what
yeah.
I thought.
Yeah. No, there's no cool down is when you get off the bike.
Okay. I got it.
He said, cool down is for when there's a power outage.
That's hardcore.
Right.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. Before we let you go, remind everybody where they can find you on all the social medias, your new book, all that stuff.
Oh, sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So the new book called Leading with Vulnerability, we made a fun webpage for it. Just go to leadwithvulnerability.com. My website is thefutureorganization.com, and I can also give people my email in case they have questions. It's Jacob@thefutureorganization.com. On my main website, you can find links to all my social, and I think you already mentioned my my name on Peloton, Chess Jacob. Come at me, bro. Take you down.
Awesome.
Okay, I
Thank
love
you.
it. Thank you.
So I guess that brings this episode to a close. Until next week, where can people find you?
People can find me on the Disney Fantasy in the middle of the ocean.
Well, not by the time this comes out.
Oh, that's true. All right. So you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Crystal D. O'Keefe. You can find me on all the social media and the Peloton leaderboard at Clip Out Crystal.
And you can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online at facebook.com/The Clip Out. While you're there, like the page, join the group, and of course, don't forget our Patreon at patreon.com/The Clip Out. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep pedaling
And running.
and rowing and cruising.